Are you tired of the mainstream media lying to you every single day? You are not alone. Millions of other Americans are sick of the corporate media fake news of the MSNBC, CNN, ABC, NBC, New York Times, other Times, Washington Post, Political. Every single one of them are in the bag for the Democrats. They are all Team DNC. But now you have another option in independent creators like here on the CASHLOREN show. Well, we will go and we will expose the deep state, these unelected bureaucrats, and the mainstream media, along with the Democrats and their friends in the Rhino Uniparty, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern. Get the facts on the CASHLOREN show. I am your host, America's Truth Teller, shining a bright red light on the corruption and the hoaxes from the mainstream media and the Democrat Party. You're not going to want to miss a single moment. Join the American First Movement Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern. This is the CASHLOREN show.
In 2025, we find ourselves in a pivotal moment where the call for unity, freedom, and a better future echoes louder than ever. For more than 10 years, Patriot Mobile has been committed to supporting the values that make our nation great. With affordable plans and reliable nationwide coverage on all three of the major networks, Patriot Mobile is not just a wireless service, it's a call to action for those who believe in the American dream. Choose a wireless carrier that shares your values. Choose Patriot Mobile.
Well, Donald Trump and his federal government has been fighting back for you, the American people, for a very long time now against everything that the deep state and the Democrats are trying to throw in against him. And as they warned you, don't do it, don't you even try, yet Donald Trump did. And now he's taking it even a step further here with fighting back for our census and for the House seats, which are on the verge of flipping from the right to the left. As this is the one thing that the Democrats, they have left that they are trying to go for in 2026. Because if they cannot take back the House in 2026, they see that as their one way to obstruct Donald Trump for the next 2 years, but really to obstruct you, the American voters, for what you voted for the next 2 years. As the Democrats, they have convinced themselves that they are morally right and that they are born to rule. And because they are born this not to rule, then because they are decided that they're morally right, then therefore Donald Trump must be bad while they are good. And so because they are good, then they decide themselves that anything they do is right and is just. And you, the American people, how dare you vote for Donald Trump? I mean, they told you for all the way back from 2015, 2016, how Donald Trump was so bad and how he was a racist and how he was a bigot and a homophobe and a transphobe and a white nationalist. And now they're going all the way to a Nazi and a fascist, and one of those extreme MAGA Republicans. But really, Donald Trump is a reflection of you. Because Donald Trump is none of those things. Donald Trump, for most of his life, was a Democrat, a New York Democrat. I mean, his path into presidency is very much like Ronald Reagan and some of the same people that are in power now, like Nancy Pelosi, who's still running in the Democrats' House, and also Chuck Schumer. They were all around back then. So when they lie to you and they try to tell you that Donald Trump is somehow some kind of king when he's only been in power for just over 4.5 years, you have all these senators that have been there for 30, 40 years. Who is the real kings? And because he fought back and because he won, he is now pushing back here with the census of the United States of America. To start off part with understanding why this is such a big fight for you, the American people, is many do not know that the census, that is done by a simple head count. How many of you knew that? There's no proof of ID and there's no proof of American citizenship when they count heads. So all of a sudden, all these sanctuary cities start to look a lot more suspicious, I think, as they bring in millions and millions of illegal aliens into these hardcore Democrat-controlled cities and states, the sanctuary cities, and yet they're counted apparently for our census. We showed a graphic the other day where New York has close to 1 million. And then we have down in California, in LA alone, they think there's over 1 million illegal aliens in just that one county. Who knows how many more are out there? We think that Biden allowed in 10 to 20 million illegal aliens in this country, and there could be all the way up to tens of millions more that were already here before. So, in my opinion, this is the definition of interference in our elections, of foreign interference. Right? You have people that shouldn't be counted because our federal government is supposed to be ran by you, the American people. Right? See, our Constitution is written so you vote for who you want to run for office, and then when they win, they go to office, and they're supposed to represent you, the American people. But the Democrats, see, they don't see it that way at all, because the Democrats see themselves as their right to born to rule over you. I mean, why should they even have to have votes? I mean, this is about social justice, and this is about equity, and this is about, everything that they think that they have the right to just magically decide is true by their strange old moral compass. So this has Donald Trump, as he posted this morning about all this illegal aliens that are coming in this country. And remember that you voted for Donald Trump to become the federal president of the United States. He's the executor of the executive branch. And he was very open, and he ran on. Okay, we do have here, we have from Donald Trump as being the executor, as he ran on deporting every single illegal alien from this country, and you all voted for Donald Trump. And because you voted for him, he posted on this. As he said here on True Social, Donald Trump said, "I've instructed the Department of Commerce to immediately begin work with the new and highly accurate census based on modern facts and figures." And then he goes on the end, "People who are in our country illegally will not be counted in the census." Of facts, right? That's the way that our government is supposed to work. Only you, the American people, have voted. And recently on this post, it's great to be with you, everybody, as I'm your host, CASHLOREN, who's making liberals cry tears are saltier than McDonald's fries. And we've recently added all of you onto TikTok, and I appreciate all of you for joining us as that ramps up, as we have been in the top 10% of every show that we have done for our bracket. And 3 of the last 4 shows have been the #1 show this night. So appreciate the great back, all of you. We also have producer Banner now. He is helping me with Spaces, and we're going to be taking callers into the show now from Spaces. And he has let me know that we have one who has their hand raised to come up and speak.
Yeah, roll the left with us.
Yeah, Cash, that's an absolutely fantastic point that you're pointing out. Is most people do not understand that the census is basically a faith-based counting system where they simply send a questionnaire to your home, and people put any kind of information on there that they want, send it back, and it's never verified. So I think people should really understand how faith-based the system is, and that the government does nothing to verify it. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. Stephen Miller, he was on earlier today, and he was talking about how bad this could be. And this is being illegal aliens, according to Stephen Miller, who are being counted in our census. And Stephen Miller said this, that he thinks that the Democrats have between 20 and 30 House seats just from counting illegal aliens. Okay, this is Stephen Miller saying this. And this goes on just from those 20 alone. Okay, we have, I think, 9 seats available, a difference between Republicans and the Democrats right now in the House. And all their eggs in their single one basket is that they have to take back the House to obstruct Donald Trump for the next 2 years. And then, of course, we have the great minds over in the corporate media of Axios, who, whether they be MSNBC, CNN, ABC, NBC, New York Times, LA Times, Washington Post, Political, or Axios, every single one of them are in the bag for the Democrats. They are all Team DNC. And so the Axios, who's more than happy to run cover for the Democrats, wrote this: "Breaking: Donald Trump's new census that could exclude unauthorized residents." So the irony for here in the corporate media is, how do they word that? Unauthorized residents. It's amazing how they keep making up all these words that really don't mean nothing, but they refuse to say what they're actually called: illegal aliens. I mean, that is the official definition. If you come into this country illegally, you are an illegal alien here in the United States of America. Its facts do not care about your feelings. But of course, just like the Democrats know, and just like corporate media knows, like Axios here, that if they say what this stuff really means, then you would never go along with what they want you to go with. So of course they have to change all these different terminologies to try to get you to come to a conclusion that you never would have if you were speaking the truth. So they'll say things, all kinds of, like here, unauthorized immigrants, or they'll call them dreamers. Or the wildest one that I heard recently, it was undocumented American citizens. I have no idea what in the woke world that means. What the heck is an undocumented American citizen? They're not American, they're not citizen. So they just think that they can just make up words, and then the corporate media and the Democrats, they do all together, is they get all their parts together and they keep repeating the same lie over and over and over again, hoping that you, the American people, will believe the lie. They'll repeat it enough times that the lie becomes the truth. But we are continuing to expose them, and this is really thanks to the rise of the independent creators. Is there's an entire generation that grew up on this garbage like Axios is putting, but there is no other way to get the other information out. And so they would lie to you, the American people, like things like this, and make it sound like it's not so bad, not tell you what they're doing here is illegal and criminal, just being in this country, and try to normalize it. And so you'd have all of them together and they'd all work together. Is MSNBC, CNN, LA Times, Axios, all of them would just repeat the same thing. So you're probably, your parents would go home, they'd either turn on the news, they'd read the newspaper, and they think they were being informed. But the biggest change is when Elon Musk purchased Twitter, and then he turned it into X. And that started an avalanche of information that really showed how far these people were lying to you, the American people. And that there was at that point, I think, when the mainstream media, when they really lost all their influence, and the Democrats really started to realize how much they were lying to you, the American people. For many, it was the presidential debate between Donald J. Trump and Joe Biden. When they told you how Joe Biden was perfectly sane, he was at the top of his health, right? He was the sharpest man in the room. You remember them saying that over and over and over again for the 4 years when he refused to go in front of press, when he had to have little pamphlets to tell him even who to call on, and then what the question he was supposed to ask, and then after that, what the answer was going to be. Yeah, we're all supposed to believe that this is perfectly normal. And then in that moment, when Joe Biden got on the debate stage, because he was forced to, he goes, well, the immigration and the border, and we need a bill, and he just kind of wandered off into who knows what nonsense. And Donald Trump ended his career right at that moment. I don't know what he said. He doesn't know what he said. But here is my plan. And that is the moment when everything blew up in the Democrats' face. That's the moment, I think, when what we call the normies, the people that casually watch the news, all of a sudden realized just how much they were being lied to. But I remember watching that clip and I was thinking, this isn't even that bad. I mean, I can show you clips that are 10 times worse than that. And then, of course, the Democrats and the mainstream media, they got started infighting. And now you have Jake Tapper and all the rest pretending that they didn't know that the White House lied to them. But that still doesn't work out well for them either, because it's one of two things. Either one, they were lying to you from the very beginning, or two, they were too incompetent to realize that the White House was lying for them. So in either one of those scenarios, why would you trust the corporate media anymore? And they still double down on all the same not learning lessons. whether it be from the impeachment hoaxes or the January 6 hoaxes or the boxes hoaxes, the Gene Carroll hoaxes, the 34 felonies, suckers and losers hoaxes, 9 bullets hoaxes. You can just go down the list of hoax after hoax after hoax that the same mainstream media tried to push. Even they're trying to bring back up now, like the Signals hoax, right? All the same ones, and they still haven't learned because they're so deep in their isolated bubble that they don't realize that most of America has found out who they really are.
Got a hand, Cash.
This comes up from next on them is that we're now are showing as because of the census, and we're talking about how the illegal aliens and how they have directly affected the House, that according to Stephen Miller, could be 20 to 30 seats, but this isn't just the House and just the seats from the illegal aliens. This has also been in the big news with Texas, as Texas is now starting to get ready to redistrict, and so is Florida and many other Republican states. And the Democrats, of course, are doing what they always do. They're pretending that they're so upset about gerrymandering districts that add more seats to one side or the other. But of course, they don't care when the Democrats do it. But the moment the Republicans do it, this is a problem. As we've showed repeatedly, is even in these blue states, there's roughly about 40% of that being Republican voters. Yeah, in many of these states, the Republicans don't even have 20% of the seats. And then we have also showing out in these how badly rigged these Democrat states are, is we have the same thing here. So Vermont, which only has 1 seat, 32%. Okay. New Hampshire has 48% of Republican, and they have 2. But these are all Democrat seats. Massachusetts, 36%, 9 House seats, all Democrat. Connecticut, 41%, 5 for the Democrats. So this is, what is this, 10, 15, this is 19 House seats with roughly 40% Republican vote, 100% Democrat held. And look, there's nothing illegal about that on its own. You know, the Democrats, if they want to gerrymander their states and they've won elections, they've run to do it, then fine by me. You know, we want state rights. But then you can't pretend that you're so upset when you have the House on the Republican side, like Texas and Florida and all the other states that we're going to be talking about, when they start to do their states to bring in more House seats for them. And I have a notice from the producer that we have a hand up over on Spaces. We've now added that.
Well, that's actually my hand, Cash.
Go
One of the big items I wanted to call out was specifically around the manipulation of the media under the Obama administration and also under the Autopen administration. You mentioned Jake Tapper and some of these other mainstream media talking heads that have been taking money in a lot of cases. You saw that with USAID. You saw that with Operation Mockingbird. That DNI Gabbard just announced actually does exist. So it's very interesting to see now that the funding's drying up, how some of these mainstream media talking heads are changing their tune. I wanted to just throw that in there.
It's kind of weird that USAID starts drying up because of thanks to Doge. And we're going to be talking later on about what happened to one of the poor Doge kids. But as that has gone forward with the USAID and the NGOs, I mean, non-government agencies, but there is nothing non-government about these agencies. They're funded by tax dollars overwhelmingly. And so as Banner brings up, and he is right, these get defunded, then all of a sudden the mainstream media has to start letting shows go. And I think that is really just the beginning. As we're going to continue to do more, Donald Trump said this was only the first round of cuts. And he had in here, let's see if I can find this real quick. So this is Donald Trump. He said that he wants to remove between 300 and 400,000 federal government jobs of these career useless people. And then all the money that comes in taken away from you, the American voters, to fund other stuff. I mean, just how funded is it by our own tax dollars? If this is true, like Tulsi Gabbard and others saying, he brought up Project Mockingbird, this meaning that our own government was funding corporate media, according to Tulsi Gabbard, And this is a proven thing, but it was supposedly supposed to come to an end decades ago. And Tulsi Gabbard said it's never coming to an end, and it's still happening to this day. Okay, if that is true, then a whole lot more makes sense about why the federal government, if they're funding these mainstream media, why they're acting so far left. It all starts to add up. And then we have in this map, as they're showing now, is these Democrats between these red states redistricting, and Scotia's probably striking down the base districts of the census for non-citizens. And this is something that the Supreme Court's going to hear very soon, and I suspect we'll have a favorable ruling. As you shouldn't be able to judge anything by race. I don't know why anybody would be against that. I mean, we shouldn't be able to gerrymander the districts based because of people's color of their skin. Anytime you start with color of skin, that is by definition racism, and that is against our Constitution of the United States of America. When we're starting to understand why the Democrats are fighting so hard for it, is they now think the census is all that put together. There could be 32 to 42 seats in the worst case scenario with all three of these combined, meaning Trump doing no illegals in the census, the Supreme Court ending race-based districting, and then red states redistricting as well. This could go all the way up to 42 seats for the Republican Party. And then we had a map where it showed how the blue states would all lose seats and how the red states would start to gain seats. So this is the fight that we have to fight and the fight that we have to win. Trump is playing the huge game and not wasting any time going and fighting these battles against the Democrats as they try to pretend that it's okay for them to gerrymander, but not the Republicans, and especially people like Jasmine Crockett, who is openly and blatantly racist, but now, thanks to the New York Times articles, her staff is reaching out and talking about all the things that are happening behind the scenes. We're going to cover that and a whole lot more. I got my clock beeping at me. We're going to be right back at this greedy profit break. This is the Cash Loren Show.
Throughout history, the spirit of patriotism has prevailed. The battles may have changed, but the values remain the same. Today, in 2025, we find ourselves at a pivotal moment where the call for unity, freedom, and a better future echoes louder than ever. For more than 10 years, Patriot Mobile has been committed to supporting the values that make our nation great. With affordable plans and reliable nationwide coverage on all three of the major networks, Patriot Mobile is not just a wireless service. It's a call to action for those who believe in the American dream. Because this year is not just any year, it's the most important year since our nation's founding. Choose a wireless carrier that shares your values. Choose Patriot Mobile.
Folks, have you wanted to start a podcast but you just don't know where to begin? Podbeam is your all-in-one solution to host your podcast and distribute it all across the internet. With my code on the affiliate link down below, you will gain also 1 month free to try the Podbeam service. This is really your one-stop solution to hosting your podcast. Record it, you put it up to just a single upload. Then that upload will distribute to all of the main platforms all across the internet, including Apple and Spotify and many, many others. It will then also automatically share your podcast across all major social media, making your job easier so you can spend more time recording the podcasts that you love and less time managing them on the back end. Podbeam is your all-in-one solution for your podcast needs. Click on the link below, the Cash Loren, and get your 1 free month today. The corporate media has lied to the American voters for such a long time that they have lost all their influence as a result. And this has also led to the rise of the independent creators, just like here on the Cash Loren Show, where we take our spare bedroom and convert it into a studio. If you're enjoying this content, it will always be free, but you can continue to help support monetarily if you choose to do so. Click on the locals link. It is only $5 a month. This is just a cup of coffee. Not only will you be supporting an independent creator, but you'll be getting lots of free perks in addition to that as well, including exclusive articles and Sunday shows, and thanking you at the end of videos with your name recognition. Take a moment and consider and help support independent creators as we fight fake news. Go to locals right now, hit the support button for just a cup of coffee a month. It'll be worth every single penny, and you're getting lots of extra benefits too. Well, the Democrats have really backed themselves deep into a corner as they're trying to figure out how to get themselves back into the public's graces. But the thing that they're doing that's ironic is that all the things that cause them to go back in the corner they're in now, let's put them on the wrong side of every single 80-20 issue, they are now continuing to double down on all those same things. As who the Democrats have left in their party, one of them being Jasmine Crockett, who has gone to fame as she has put herself in front of a camera very often. And I say, for Jasmine Crockett, if you want to keep going in front of a camera and you want to keep going in front of a microphone, then please do. I beg you. Please keep saying all the things that you're saying. Keep telling the American people of who you are. And this is an article written by the New York Post. And this headline, Trump's critic, Representative Jasmine Crockett, is a no-show boss from hell who terrorized staffers, aides say, all diva, no wow. Well, I would expect that this shocks just about nobody. And this has very similar vibes to what's going like with Kamala Harris, of all the issues that she had, as it's all about them. You know, just like with Hillary Rodham Clinton, no, I'm with her. And Jasmine Crockett, it seems to be the exact same kind of person. All talk, no substance, but all that attitude that comes along with her that she thinks makes her popular. And while that might add people onto her social media pages, it might get her more likes and more clicks and more comments. It doesn't really help much with governing. And I hope really truly believe that the Democrats think that she is a good person to run in front of the national stage. And this is coming from three sources that work for Jasmine Crockett. And they're reporting to the New York Post under the anonymity so that they can say what they wanted to say. And when I always say anything about sources or about polls, it's kind of take them with a grain of salt. But this could there's some weight. They said Jasmine Crockett has positioned herself as an unfiltered critic of President Trump, which I would agree. I mean, that's the entire Democrat Party. Because they have nothing to run on, not a single subject that the American people care about, can they say that they are front and center. But the only thing they do have to run on is to hate Donald Trump. Well, then it goes on to earn this because of her attitude has earned regular TV appearances and has euthanized a huge online following. Again, empty, but yes. And then these aides are saying that the Democrat, Jasmine Crockett is just rude and mean to her own staff. That wouldn't surprise me one bit. Every time it's clipped, all the attitude that she has, and that's her go-to. Right? That is the one thing that she has decided to brand herself as the all-attitude woman. I mean, in her very own words, right? You don't mess with a black woman. Those are Jasmine Crockett's words, or you're going to get some attitude back, right? Jasmine Crockett's own words. That's her brand. So she went on that the 44 has rocketed to fame since taking office 2023 as a fiery antagonist of the Republican president and his allies. But these people that worked for her, they said Crockett, she's rarely present when the TV cameras aren't rolling. I'm shocked to tell you. I'm absolutely shocked that she's empty. And that she terrorizes her staff when she happens to appear. So maybe all that attitude that she puts in front of a camera, maybe that is true. And then it says Crockett is often not found at a government-provided suite in the Longhorn House office building. So again, more tax dollars being wasted. But she prefers to stay in her nearby luxury apartment building, sometimes for weeks on end. She is lying around her apartment, won't come into the office, is really just indifferent to her staff, and screams at them all the time. Does anybody be surprised by any of this? And then she goes on, she will never in office engage. And then it says, second source close to Crockett says, it's widely known that she's not nice to staff and it's just not really a dedicated member focused on the constituents. I mean, it's almost like electing people that care more about social media than about governing is a bad idea. I mean, who else does this remind you of? Besides like Jasmine Crockett, maybe Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, huge following, millions and millions of people, but none substance. But she cost herself jobs. I mean, what has she done for New York? This is the same thing with Jasmine Crockett. She's worth millions and millions of dollars now, but what has she done for her actual constituents, the ones that she's supposed to represent? Yet somehow she keeps, just like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, keeps on getting reelected. And her staff says she's focused almost exclusively on being an influencer, not a member of Congress, said the third source who's worked for Crockett, describing her as all diva, no woke. The staff are expected to stand out and say, with vehicles, which has to be Escalade. So this again, this is tax dollars being spent on the best vehicles possible that she can get her hands on. Similar make. And that her staff then has to open the door for her. Now you are technically allowed to do this, but if you're a servant of the American people, right? If your first goal is to serve your constituents in the United States Congress, then why are you hiding out in a luxury hotel? And why are you using tax dollars to get the best vehicles you can? And then why are you demanding your staff drive you around and even open the door for you like you're some kind of queen bee? Unless, just like Hillary Clinton and just like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, it's all about her and her image. And then she expects all of her staff to only open the door for her, but then she sits in the back and they drive her around to wherever she wants to go. And her staff says that she just does this as a power play to do her authority over them. Then Crockett goes on the national spotlight in 2024 when she attacked Marjorie Taylor Greene. And we covered this back when this happened. This is basically a cat fight that broke out in Congress. And Marjorie Taylor Greene went after Jasmine Crockett. Jasmine Crockett went after her. And the AOC got on, and it just turned into this huge shouting match. You know, I remember Jasmine Crockett, I'm just asking for clarification, when she's given a bunch of attitude. And then, of course, Marjorie Taylor Greene's egging her on. Oh, baby, baby, baby. And all, fluttering behind your fake eyelashes. And it was just, why are people in Congress acting like that? But this is that moment where Jasmine Crockett really hit the main stage, because that got millions of views. And then she learned all the wrong lessons from this as she continues to double down on all the attitude, but it attracts the wrong impression for the Democrats. If you're wondering why the Democrats are sub 20%, it's because they have people like Jasmine Crockett going on the main stage for them with hundreds of thousands, some of them millions of viewers. The Democrats really should be doing is say, Jasmine Crockett, just stop it. Just get off social media. Stop getting in front of a camera. Please, you're hurting us. You're killing us. Stop doing it. Stop with all the attitude and stop with the lack of substance. We're already down under 20%, and all this thing that you're doing on these cameras are hurting us more. So just stop. Just go into Congress and do your job. But they are so into their own little leftist liberal bubble that they think that they are better than you. I mean, she's got an Ivy League degree, right? She was a civil servant, supposedly. I don't know what cases she actually did until she got into the government in her House seat. And then all of a sudden it becomes worth nothing to worth millions of dollars in a very short amount of time, including owning 3 different properties off a government salary. You know, how does that work out? I wonder. Can anyone explain how she got so rich so quick? Or why she does nothing for her constituents? I mean, what bill has she passed? How has she made the life of the people in her district? What has she done to make it better? But it goes on this. The staff, of course, become fed up with the treatment. I mean, how many of you worked for a crappy boss and absolutely just get sick of it? And either people, what they call like quietly quit, where you still show up to work, but you do minimum effort, or you go and you find another job. And how many great talent, of course, then gets ruined by these awful bosses. I mean, I know I've worked for them, and I'm sure that you have too. And it sounds like from their statements, that Crockett is one of them. And then when they try to advise her to do, stop talking to the media, her staff is saying, please, this isn't the look that you think it is. And then Crockett gets upset at them for giving her very good advice that she probably should listen to. But of course, I don't want her to listen to. I want her to keep getting in front of camera as often as possible. And then Jasmine Crockett, she thinks her own best advisor that she knows best. Good. I really hope not only that she believes that, but I hope the Democrats believe it too. In this toxic staff environment, she gets into the press and people because she's like, I do all the press myself. I hope she continues to do so. I hope she goes up there and she goes on with the attitude and the lack of substance and shows the American people who the Democrats really are. Please continue to do it. And another aide, a young black woman, she was fired abruptly by Jasmine Crockett. And then they said, I don't want to hear about Jasmine Crockett after, because she talks all about this identity politics, right? That you shouldn't, that people should get hired or not hired based on the color of their skin. I mean, that's Jasmine Crockett's own statement, right? That's the way that she has the pedestal that she's decided to stand on. That's her hill. She talks all the time about how DEI and how we need to open it up, lying about what DEI is, before the people of color. Okay, but now she's firing the people that she pretends that she's supposed to be representing. And then this has gotten so bad that because of her own DEI and because of her race-based hiring, is that now she's trying to exclusively recruit for, in her words, black women to work for her, yet none are seeming to want to go to work for her. I wonder why. So she can't fill the vacancies. That's what happens when you treat people like crap. They don't want to work for you, and word eventually gets around. And especially in that environment, somewhere like DC, when you get to work for a congressman or a congresswoman, it's supposed to be almost like an honor. These jobs are very hard to get usually. You generally have to know somebody who already knows somebody to get in and be a part of that. And so it's kind of like a special thing. It's usually people who believe in something greatly, right? Some kind of cause, something that has called them to serve, and now they want to serve whoever's in Congress to meet that end, that goal. But if the person that's in Congress is this toxic and only interested in themselves and only cares about themselves, then why would anybody want to work for them? As Jasmine Crockett herself is in a huge amount of trouble as she comes down and she loses people on the seats. And then also now as Texas goes to redistrict, she is starting to figure out that her seat might go away as one of her properties might not be in her district anymore. I'm going to see how this all plays out. I really hope the Democrats continue to learn nothing. And with that, we're up against the next break. When we come back, we're going to talk about DOGE and big balls and how the Democrats are wrong on every single issue. They're also wrong on this one too. And you have this young hero who defended a woman in DC, and the Democrats decide, again, like always, to defend the criminals and not the heroes. And this is leading to Donald Trump starting to make drastic decisions that they might federalize DC. Can he do that? And then also, what does that look like in the fake news networks over on CNN as Scott Jennings has to go in and educate these Democrat liberal elites just how on the wrong side of every single issue that they are. You're not going to miss that and a whole lot more when we come back from this greedy profit break. This is the Cash Loren Show.
Throughout history, the spirit of patriotism has prevailed. The battles may have changed, but the values remain the same. Today, in 2025, we find ourselves at a pivotal moment where the call for unity, freedom, and a better future echoes louder than ever. For more than 10 years, Patriot Mobile has been committed to supporting the values that make our nation great. With affordable plans and reliable nationwide coverage on all 3 of the major networks, Patriot Mobile is not just a wireless service. It's a call to action for those who believe in the American dream. Because this year is not just any year, it's the most important year since our nation's founding. Choose a wireless carrier that shares your values. Choose Patriot Mobile.
Folks, have you wanted to start a podcast but you just don't know where to begin? Podbeam is your all-in-one solution to host your podcast and distribute it all across the internet. With my code on the affiliate link down below, you will gain also 1 month free to try the Podbeam service. This is really your one-stop solution to hosting your podcast. Record it, you put it up to just a single upload. Then that upload will distribute to all of the main platforms all across the internet, including Apple and Spotify and many, many others. It will then also automatically share your podcast across all major social media, making your job easier so you can spend more time recording the podcasts that you love and less time managing them on the back end. Podbeam is your all-in-one solution for your podcast needs. Click on the link below, the Cash Loren, and get your 1 free month today. The corporate media has lied to the American voters for such a long time that they have lost all their influence as a result. And this has also led to the rise of the independent creators, just like here on the Cash Loren Show, where we take our spare bedroom and convert it into a studio. If you're enjoying this content, it will always be free, but you can continue to help support monetarily if you choose to do so. Click on the locals link. It is only $5 a month. This is just a cup of coffee. Not only will you be supporting an independent creator, but you'll be getting lots of free perks in addition to that as well, including exclusive articles and Sunday shows, and thanking you at the end of videos with your name recognition. Take a moment and consider it and help support independent creators as we fight fake news. Go to locals right now, hit the support button for just a cup of coffee a month. It'll be worth every single penny, and you're getting lots of extra benefits too. The Democrats are on the wrong side of every single issue that the American people care about, and that is why they lost the presidency, why they lost the House, and why they've lost the Senate. And they continue to draw down and lose every single support that they have, even from them what would be normally middle left, has even gone over to the right. As the Democrats are so insulated in their own little bubbles, they don't realize how unpopular they have become. Even when they're warned by their own polls being at 17 or 19%, and even as the corporate media loses more and more influence and loses more and more viewers, they're still so just arrogant, believing that they are right, that they continue to learn no lessons from us. And this comes on to now also in Washington, D.C., was becoming a criminal empire for the Democrat Party. Is one of the things that they've also decided to be on the wrong issue side of is the law enforcement of this country. And the Democrats have decided that they're just going to continue to let violent criminals go back out into the streets and either not charge them, not arrest them, or under prosecute them if they get prosecuted at all. And how many times do we see someone do something very violent, very dangerous, and then they're put right back on bail, either for no cash bail or for a couple $100, and then they go on to do some violent crime again. This just happened in Washington, D.C., as a woman was assaulted. And then we had the Doge employee, and he has gotten the famous name of Big Balls, as when he was younger and he made his online name Big Balls, and somehow he got that name. Good for him. And that is now stuck with him, and more people know him by that than his real name. And this young hero, this young brave patriot, he stood up and he did what any of us, I hope, would do. And you see some woman being assaulted, he stood up and he went and he defended her. And these violent thugs beat the living snot out of him for it. But this brought a lot of attention over to Washington, D.C., and these Democrats, just like they do in everywhere they have, when they get these soulless-backed DAs and the other prosecutors and the judges who just refuse to lock up criminals, and crime gets more and more worse. And then they cover up a lot of this. What they do is they underreport crime, or they undercharge so it doesn't show up in the documents, like in the FBI thing. So this is Donald Trump saying that he is considering taking over the DC. This is Donald Trump in his own words.
Anything to do with it, but we've had very productive talks today. Yes, ma'am.
President Trump, on federalizing DC, are you considering taking over the DC police? Is that an option on the table?
We're considering it, yeah, because the crime is ridiculous. I could show you a chart comparing DC to other locations, and you're not going to want to see what it looks like. It was just up on television, actually. They were showing it. Now, we want to have a great, safe capital, and we're going to have it. And that includes cleanliness, and it includes other things. We have a capital that's very unsafe. You know, we just almost lost a young man.
Yeah, he is 100% right. And Americans are getting absolutely sick of this, because we're tired of what you call the two-tier justice system. If you commit a crime, then it shouldn't matter what race you are, what your background is. You get prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, and you go to prison, especially when someone is violent and dangerous. Now, I saw a sheriff stat, it was not too long ago, where it said, did you know that the average person, by the time they commit murder, has been arrested 17 times? This means you can cut the murder rate in half just by putting someone in prison on the 16th time they're arrested, removing them from society. 16, not first, second, or third. See, because crimes, they always escalate, right? Somebody is nonviolent, even showing, right? Start with stealing maybe a piece of gum, right? Then maybe stealing from their parents, and then stealing electronics. And then the next thing you know, they're doing felony burglaries. So that's the way crime works. It's the same thing, first with verbal threats to physical threats. And then the physical threats get worse and worse and worse. This is why these people need to be removed from society. It is the only way to keep people safe. You have to make a choice. Are you going to put American citizens' safety first? Or are you going to put these criminals first? The Democrats, they have chosen the criminals. They have decided to put America last and go all their eggs in the basket for criminals and put all their eggs in baskets for illegal aliens. Gee, I wonder why they're so unpopular. Why are the Democrats down to 17%? It's a mystery inside a riddle, inside an enigma. I can't figure it out. Please help me understand. So this young hero, Big Balls, he goes and he fights and saves this woman. And then you have the other ones who got beat up, and this is Cincinnati, I believe, over a couple of weeks ago by the same thing, these same violent thugs. And she just now got out of the hospital and showing what they did to her. Enough is enough. We got to find a way to get rid of these prosecutors who refuse to prosecute crime, and these judges who absolutely keep releasing these violent criminals back into society. I mean, at one point are these judges and these prosecutors, at what point are they held responsible for what they do? Because we do need a certain amount of judicial where they can't be charged with crimes, and they're protected because they have to do their jobs just like law enforcement. But just like any politician, it should only be balanced within the duty of their jobs. So they have a violent criminal with a long rap sheet of violent crime, and they let that criminal back out in the street, and they very expectedly commit another violent crime, At what point does the judge get held responsible for that? I mean, we do that to normal society. If you're a person, let's say you make the decision to get drunk and then drive, and you get on a road and you hit and you hurt somebody, okay, you're held responsible for hurting that person. Now, was that your intent? No. But you made the previous decision that led to that. And this is the same, in my mind, the same thing here. I think this is part of the problem with our judicial system and why it's been broken, is it was made to be on the side of the innocent, which is good. Okay, if you're going to err on the side of the innocent, the side of the guilty, I think our founding fathers were right. But the one thing our society underestimated was people like George Soros, who would then put in prosecutors who you think their goal would be to prosecute crime. But in fact, it's the exact opposite. Their goal is to create a two-tier justice system where if you're on the right side or the Democrat side, then you don't have to worry. They won't prosecute you. But if you're on the right side, then the very minor things, they will try to ruin your entire life over. That's not the way our society is supposed to work. We're supposed to have blind justice. And we have to fight and we have to win these battles now. And so Trump is talking about taking over DC, and it looks like he can do this. And the DC, they have a higher capital homicide rate than several major cities. And this is, remember, small DC. And that juvenile crime has surged every year over the past half decade. I'm not surprised one bit, because just like DC and just like California and all the others, they're using juveniles as an excuse not to prosecute people, because they're saying, you know what, the juveniles, right? They're just kids. We can't ruin their lives. Well, what about all the lives of these juveniles ruined? They either beat the snot of or they end these people's lives. You know, what about their rights? What about their safety? But that doesn't fit the Democrats' narrative. That doesn't fit putting criminals first over law-abiding American citizens. And now that Judge Jeannie has just been put in charge of DC, she's got a lot of work to do out there. And this continues to get worse for the Democrats. As this story comes out that you probably heard nothing about, this is from Washington, D.C. also, as they've been busted. As this D.C. police commander suspended, accused of changing crime statistics, and it wasn't just him. Wow, I'm completely shocked. And apparently, according to this article, what they've been doing is that they will undercharge crimes so they don't show up like in the FBI database. So if you're, commit a felony, but you're the protected class on the left, they will, instead of charging you a felony, they charge you either with a misdemeanor or nothing at all. Then all of a sudden, poof, no crime. Right? I mean, that's the thing about the statistics. If you don't arrest somebody, then it doesn't show up in the crime statistics. If you don't prosecute them, it doesn't show up. If you undercharge them, it doesn't show up. So when the people in the residents who live there and see crime getting worse and worse and see their cities going down the pieces, but then you have on the other side, you have all these so-called these people that are in positions of power abusing that power in lying about statistics to get you to come to a conclusion that if you had the real honest statistics, you would never come to. And this happens all over the country, all over the place. And now DC is the one getting caught because they're the ones that are in the focus now, thanks to Trump and thanks to what happened with Big Balls. And we have now Scott Jennings over on CNN with the rest of the Democrat propagandists pretending to be being journalists are very, very upset because he's pointing out basic facts about the American people being sick of the Democrats' soft on crime policies, and yet they seem not to learn any lessons, even when they're down to 17%.
Right now, the plight of American hero Big Balls has set off a firestorm in the Republican Party. This kid, he goes out.
Not just the Republican Party. I think the American people overall are sick and tired of this, and they want and demand change. And they should. Every single American, we should at least be able to agree on that we have the equal opportunity in this country. Not equity, not end results, equality, the starting point. And then if you are a criminal and you commit crimes, then it shouldn't matter what side of the aisle you're on or what color your skin is. You just get prosecuted equally. Justice has to be blind or we have no justice. And the Democrats just don't want to admit it.
on the
Just
street.
infiltrated all of our
He protects
information.
a woman from being attacked by a roving street gang, and he had the crap kicked out of him. And, you know, we had a congressional intern murdered not too long ago. I'm just telling you, Republicans right now have about had it with the violence and the idea that you can't even walk around D.C. right now without getting attacked by street gangs.
Don't we have laws
Well,
on the books already?
400 carjackings, they're not being enforced.
I served.
I can't tell you enough, folks, just how right Scott Jennings is there. The American people are absolutely sick of it, and the Democrats can't defend their position, so they move what they always do to the victim cards, right? They always go to, oh, it's racist, or I'm a woman, or, you know, the people of color, all the things that they're lying to you about to justify their illegal actions. That is simply what this is. This is the Democrats putting criminals ahead of American citizens, and then being very upset when you happen to notice. And so they will slander you by calling you a racist or a bigot or a homophobe, and they don't believe any of that, and they don't care. This is not about whether they actually think that you're any of those things. What this is about is they're trying to slander you into submission. See, when the Democrats, when they call you a racist, or they call you a Nazi, or they call you a fascist, what they're really saying is just shut up. Just stop speaking. Because you're not saying what we want to hear. That's not their approved message. So we're going to call you names to shut you up. And Americans have had enough. And because they've used it so much, it no longer works anymore. And they're bleeding more and more American voters over to the right. I think it's way worse than the stats we have. You know, the polls that we have that run, they're almost all ran by the left. And so when they say like 19% or 17%, I'm willing to bet it's much, much lower than that. And I think the Democrats internally, they're starting to realize that. As we go back to like the 2024 election to help bring down this point, this is Kamala Harris. And you had all the Democrats and all the mainstream media talk about how close this race was going to be and how we might not even know the results on election night. But then we find out later that Democrats and their own internal polling knew that Kamala Harris was losing the entire time. In fact, not one internal poll had her winning. Not one. That's the difference to now. It's the same thing here. Is the Democrats, because they're so in their elite bubbles, because they believe their own BS, they don't realize how sick the American people are of this, and they just need a leader to wrap around. One like Donald J. Trump. The one thing that they're scared more than anything else is a billionaire populist who will go up against the deep state and the uniparty and fight for you, the American people. And not just in DC, and not just with crime, and not just with the borders, but he's also fighting to make America healthier again. As the Democrats have all their screwing up and pushing people over to the right, they also push over RFK. And now under RFK and Donald Trump, they're now moving with the SNAPS program. The SNAPS program is this being food benefits or welfare, is that they've always been allowed to buy sugar. And now we have over 13 states have begun the process of banning the use of food stamps or soda or sugary snacks. Good. Not a single tax dollar should be spent on sugar. Not a one. You know, really, food stamps, why, as a society, I prefer the government not to be involved, but that is not really a reality. And so because of that, then we make the food stamps so miserable that nobody wants to be on it. You get the bare minimum basics, and that is it. You can buy some hamburger meat, you can buy some bread, you can buy some salad, you can buy water. Make people hate being on food stamps so they want to go out and get a job. That is the best answer. It's the best way to have people act in their own best interest is to give them an option like that. Because if you just giving people hundreds of dollars in food stamps or thousands, wherever it may be in this particular case, and then they can just buy anything they want, then what do they buy? Right? They buy pizza, they buy sugar, they buy Hostess, right? They buy all this crap that is bad for them, and then become greatly obese, and then become also a problem on our healthcare system. So the solution is simple. And I think they're right on the right track here. Get rid of all these benefits. And with that, we are running up against the end of the today's show. I want to thank every single one of you watching. You enjoy this, make sure you like and repost and help us spread an American first message. I also want to thank Patriot Banner for helping me now in Spaces and starting to produce this show, as we will be back Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern. And in addition to the main show, we're also going to continue on Spaces and over on TikTok for as long as it lasts. And then next week, I'm having some technical issues with Rumble, as we're also going to bring that back too. So I have to figure that out over this weekend, and we get the rest of these new technology worked out in the show. So the rest of these stories will go back in the stack. Thank every single one of you, and especially thank all the people who are supporting the show. For less than a cup of coffee, you can help support the show too and help us defeat fake news. And with that, all the ones who have, thank you very much. We'll be back in just a few minutes over on TikTok and Spaces. This is the Cash Loren Show.